And now we bring ourselves to the playoff teams of the Eastern Conference. Starting off with the 8th seed, I am going to go with Philadelphia. I know they lost Andre Miller. I know there's nothing very interesting about them. I know they're just kind of stuck in that gray area where they have no chance of competing for a title, but will probably pull 500. But Elton Brand, remember, he gave them nothing last year. If he gives them anything this year, that's an improvement. So I'm going to say he gives them at least a little something this year, maybe even plays like he did in Los Angeles, and gets the Clippers the 8th seed. And I'm going to go with the 8th seed because I do think losing Andre Miller hurts, and I could see them falling off a little bit in other areas. But 42 wins for the Philadelphia Sixers and the 8th seed. Seed the 7th goes to the Atlanta Hawks with, I'm going to say, 44 wins. I really don't know what to say about this team. I don't like all the stuff they're saying about Joe Johnson wanting the extension but not getting as much money as he wants, and there's a little bit of going back and forth there. And I don't like how that bodes for them because he's obviously very important to what they do. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen with guys like Josh Smith this year. I mean, Josh Smith could be a guy who rounds into a franchise player, but more than likely he's going to stay in that number 2 area. And then you got Marvin Williams. We still really have no idea what we're going to get from him. Obviously, he's a guy that Atlanta took in the draft and really should have taken a point guard, but he still has a chance to contribute, and I'm going to go conservative here. I'm going to say the 7th seed for the Atlanta Hawks. The 6th seed, the Chicago Bulls. I'm just going to say one thing here. I am expecting a huge year from Derrick Rose. Okay, I'm going to say more than one thing, but if you take away one thing from this Chicago Bulls talk, Derrick Rose should have a monster season. I'm counting on it. I'm expecting it. Nothing less. On top of that, they lost Ben Gordon, but I think Luol Deng can replace Ben Gordon's production. That they probably won't miss him that much if Luol Deng plays well. Joakim Noah is a good energy guy who grabs a lot of rebounds. The only concern I really have with them is Vinny Del Negro, the coach. He's not good, and he could end up strangling this team in some way, shape, or form. But I'm going to go a little bold with them. I'm going to say 45 wins, an improvement over last year. Seed number 5, the Washington Wizards. I know they had the second worst record in the league last year, but I think it's going to happen. They're going to bounce back in a huge way. Looking at the team they bring this year, it's got talent out the yin yang. They get Gilbert Arenas back. Hopefully he's going to be healthy the whole way because obviously we know what he can do when he's healthy. I like Deshaun Stevenson and Nick Young as the shooting guards. Caron Butler is a very good small forward, a guy who I absolutely trust to play well. And they've got young big guys like Brendan Haywood and Javal McGee that I think could round in something. Antoine Jamison, hopefully he can make a contribution. And I think there's just too much talent on this team to hold them back. So with Gilbert back in the lineup, the Wizards will push for the 5 seed. And I will say 48 wins. I'm feeling really good about the Wizards this year. I don't like the long-term prospects of the Miami Heat. I think Dwayne Wade's going to leave at the end of the season, and I don't know what they have behind him. But for this 1 year, I think they make out well. 50 wins for the Miami Heat and the 4 seed. I like Mario Chalmers as a role player. I like Daquan Cook as a role player. They have quite a few role players who I appreciate being able to do a little bit of damage. And of course you can't forget a guy like Udonis Haslem. And I think they could get some value for Jermaine O'Neal in a trade. But more importantly, you have Dwayne Wade, who's going to be one of the best players in the league. And you have Michael Beasley, who's hopefully going to be a good second option. I know there are a lot of question marks about this guy, but Dwayne Wade's in a contract year, Michael Beasley is in a show-me year, and I say those two things combine with whatever they get for Jermaine O'Neal and produces a 4 seed and 50 wins for the Heat. I know it's really easy to love Boston right now. People are putting them down for 65 wins, 66 wins. I'm not doing it. I'm going to say 54 wins in the 3 seed. Let's break it down, guys. This is a really good team, but I got some questions. First of all, the big thing, Kevin Garnett. People assume he's going to be back. I say no. I say that's the kind of injury that's never going to come back all the way. I think he's going to be gimped all season. He's probably going to get hurt again at some point and miss games. And I would be surprised if they got more than a 16-8 out of him. I do not see him making a big bounce back this year. He's getting old, people. It happens. Your knees go out. Behind him, they have Rasheed Wallace and Glenn Davis. Now, think about that for a second. They brought in Glenn Davis and Rasheed Wallace to back up KG. That tells you what they think about KG's health situation. But in my opinion, Rasheed Wallace is probably washed up at this point. Don't trust him. And I like Glenn Davis, but he's still Glenn Davis. Paul Pierce, getting a lot older. He's showed signs of wear and tear last year. That's not going to change this year. At the end of the year, if he's had to carry the load, he's not going to have much left for the playoffs. Same with Ray Allen, although Ray Allen's in a contract year, and I think he's going to do well because he's in that contract year. We don't know how Rajon Rondo is going to react to having that contract debacle over the offseason with the GM of the Celtics. And I still don't really like Doc Rivers as a coach very much. So it's a very talented team. I listed a bunch of players just now that are all very talented, all all-star possible players when they're playing at their best. But there are age issues and there are health issues all around. So the 3 seed for the Celtics, I'm going down a little bit on them. My only issue with what the Orlando Magic did this offseason was they became normal. Last year, they had a shooting forward with the handles of a shooting guard, but the size of a power forward. They had a power forward with the size of a power forward, but the skill set of a small forward. All of this came together and made one of the wackiest teams in the league, and that took them all the way to the finals. This year, now they have a normal team. They have a normal small forward, a little bigger than the average small forward, but still. Normal power forward, normal center, normal shooting guard, normal point guard. That's my only thing. Other than that, this team is really, really talented. They brought in Vince Carter, an all-star quality player. They're getting Jameer Nelson back, one of my favorite players in this league. Dwight Howard's the best big man in the league. Rashard Lewis, best three-point shooting small forward in the league, and Brandon Bass, kind of an interesting prospect. So I'm going to say they win 59 games like last year. I think they're better than they were last year, but now they're a little more usual, and they were a little more fun last year, I think. I don't think we should get too far away from Cleveland, guys. People seem to assume that last year was their chance, they blew it, and now it's over. I don't buy it. This is still a really good team. This is still a team that won 66 games last year. The main reason they lost in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals, number one, a lot of players on that team hadn't been there before, so they didn't handle it well. Mo Williams in particular wasn't getting the job done. And number two, they just couldn't match up with Orlando. They had too many wacky things that they could throw at them, like Rashard Lewis murdered them because Anderson Varejao, no way. But at the end of the day, this team is probably better than the team that won 66 games last year. Just because of what they did in the playoffs, don't let that cloud your judgment. LeBron James, still the best player in the league probably. They brought in guys like Anthony Parker, who I think is a quality three-point guy who's going to bring some stuff to that team. I didn't like the Shaq trade, but it makes them better, I think. It gives them another player to play with, and they didn't lose anything. So it can't really make them worse. They brought in Leon Poe, nice bench player. Jamario Moon, I think, is a new acquisition. He's going to contribute a few things here and there. This team is still, in my opinion, the best in the East. And I'm going to go 64 wins for them. I think they win the East convincingly. I don't know. Maybe there's something here I'm not seeing. I'll give you Shaq looks really fat, probably probably um, washed up, but he can still contribute enough to be an asset to this team. And they still got the most destructive force in basketball. And I think it would be very unwise to just rule them out before the season starts, like some people are doing.